Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. My name is Tara, and today's video is part 2 of the take a look back at 2024, some of my favorite projects that I've done throughout the months. And so I just picked one project per month and that I thought was one of my favorites and wanted to show you again, and I hope you all enjoy. So let's get to it. So for this video, I just have been thrifting a few times, and I've got a couple items that I want to upcycle. Now I have this silver tea set. I don't think it's real silver. I think it's silver plated. And I saw Sonnet and Heather from Create Your Own Cozy do a tea set or a teapot kind of like this. And I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So I've been dying to try it. So I am using my Fusion mineral paint in the color Conservatory. Now these pieces, I did the teapot, I did the plate, and a creamer and sugar, and they're all just from different sets. But because I'm making it the same color with the same pattern, it's going to be all cohesive and look like it was supposed to go together. So I did use 2 coats of the Fusion Conservatory on each piece. Because it's silver, I want to make sure that it's going to adhere really well, so I used alcohol to clean it. And then I'm going to go in with my IOD transfer called Painterly Florals, and it has gorgeous sunflowers and rose blossoms. And so I thought that the pink flowers would pair really well with this Conservatory green. So we're going to just finish up this second coat after this, let it dry thoroughly in between. Now I'm upstairs in my studio and it's very warm. I have a little air conditioner, but it's still really warm. So it dried really fast. So these are the florals that I picked. They're super pretty. Has different tones of pink in it, and then the greens pair really well with that Conservatory color. So with any transfer you get, you want to take the backing off, place it down, use your little tool to push it as you kind of lift up from the bottom on the back side there, and that's going to rub your transfer onto your project. And you want to make sure to burnish it when you're done, either with your hand or the plastic is what I usually use right there. I'm just going to rub that in, make sure it's nice and sealed to the project itself. Now the round surface was a little bit more difficult, but these IOD transfers make it so easy to place these on. What I did was I cut it out, and then I cut little slits around it to help it be able to bend a little bit more. You can see right here, this is where I'm cutting those little slits in. And then I do take my tool and I just place it down and hold it while I use my tool to go from the middle out to the sides. And that way it made it a little bit easier to rub it and help it release. I used my finger at first, but then I thought it might be easier to get the tool out. So, and you can see once it releases, it kind of changes color, so you know that it's okay to lift up. And then I just keep working my way around until that entire one comes off. It did kind of split a little bit, but then you can move it back into position and keep going. So I thought this was just a really pretty outcome with this set. I love the fact that Sonnet from Sonnet's Garden Blooms, I don't know who came up with it first, but when she did that, my mouth just dropped open. I thought it was so pretty. Never thought of painting silver and leaving some of the silver accents like this. It's just beautiful. So I'm hoping to put this in the store and sell it as a set. Let me know what you guys think. A lot of people get upset for painting over antique vintage things, but these were found in the Goodwill bins and a thrift store, and so I see it as if it's already at that point in its life, somebody's not going to, grab it up to keep it as it is. So why not give it a new life and a new lease by giving it some color and showing that it can still serve a purpose and be beautiful. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with my Fusion's Tough Coat in the matte, and I'm going to seal in that transfer. I did, even though Fusion has its own sealer in the paint, I did do the entire thing because I want the matte finish to be all cohesive, not just in one spot, so that it looks all the same. So I went ahead and just sealed it with one coat on each piece, and then that whole set was finished. I really love this tea set. It just speaks to my heart. I love the fact that it's two-toned. I'm still really into the two-tone look with furniture as well. And I think it just gives it a new life. So this is definitely my favorite. So today I have something a little bit different. A friend of mine had this gorgeous, really old hand-carved wooden table that I bought, and then she saw these chairs and thought that would go perfect with this table that I have. And so she gave these 4 chairs to me, which was just so super sweet. And we decided it would be a good idea to go ahead and decoupage on the back of it and then just reupholster the base. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to unscrew. It's just held on by 4 screws. Unscrew each of them. And by no means am I any kind of sewer or upholsterer or anything, but these are typically pretty easy to do as long as you have the right equipment. So I'm going to be using it's an electric stapler, which makes this go so easy. And I got this fabric at a thrift store. I believe it's a big chunk, and I believe it was like $5.99 for all of this fabric. So I was able to do all 4 of the seating pads with that. And instead of taking everything off the chair, there was only 1 piece of fabric on there already. So I'm just going to go over the top of it. It wasn't in super bad condition. There was no rips or tears or anything. So we're just going to go right over the top. And I am going to kind of work side to side. So I'm going to start like, if you were to start on the north side, the next one you'd want to do would be the south side. You don't want to go like around clockwise. That just helps make it nice and taut if you keep it even on each side. So Just cutting out the fabric here. And I just cut, I think it was probably a good 3 inches on each side, longer than the pillow itself for the seating. That's going to give me enough fabric to work with to be able to pull it back, staple it, and then I can cut away the excess. So this fabric is very neutral, and it's going to pair really well with the designs that I have chosen for the backs of the chairs. And unfortunately, I only had 3 designs that I had found that would fit perfectly. And they're going to go really well with the fridge that I decoupaged, my horse fridge. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but I will link a video at the very end of this one if you want to watch that. It's got a beautiful black stallion on it. And so I've picked 3 different horses, and they're all from the Whimsical decoupage papers, which my friend Debbie Frimmer sells on her website as well as in her store. So if you're interested in these, you can go to elsielaneboutique.com and you can go ahead and order those from her. So as you can see, I'm just using my stapler to kind of pull and go straight down that line. Now we're going to go to the other side, and I'm going to just pull it nice and taut, staple it down just a few, and then when I am all done, I go back and make sure to have it completely stapled down. But when I got to the corners, I was trying to figure out, how do I want to do this? So I basically just pinched up the corners, cut a little bit of that excess off, and then pulled it nice and tight. And you'll see here, I'm going to pinch it together, staple it really close on each side. So I'll have this little triangle sticking up. And then I'm going to remove the excess from the sides and then just push that triangle down, staple it down, and make sure it's nice and tight. And that way I'll have a nice, good corner. So now that I've done the north and south, we're going to go east and west. I'm going to go ahead and just pull as I continue to go across, make sure it's nice and tight so I don't have any wrinkles on the other side. And then once I get to that corner, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to remove the excess, make that little triangle, and then just pull it nice and tight and staple it down. So I'm going to just repeat this step every corner. And when I come to this last one, I don't know if I did it on this one, but I flipped it over just to make sure it looked okay. A lot of times if you pull it too tight, since these have lines in them with the arrows, you don't want the lines to be like wavy. So you want to make sure that it's nice and tight, but not so tight that it's going to distort the pattern, if that makes sense. So I do just kind of, before I do the final one, I flip it over and double check to make sure that everything looks good. Okay, so now for the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and use my mister. Whenever you paint fabric, you want to make sure it's got a wet base to it. That way the paint can work a lot easier and get down inside It does take a while. So for some reason, I thought I would do this the hard way, but I figured it out finally in a little bit and work smarter, not harder. I'm going to be using my Fusions mineral paint in the color Cashmere. And I keep kind of misting it just so that it can spread out a little bit. But here I'm taking a baby wipe because I'm getting it all over the wood, which I don't want to do. And so eventually I finally figure out, oh, there's little tabs on the back that I can take off and unscrew these backings from the chairs. So that makes it a lot easier. But until then, we're going to continue to use a baby wipe and wipe off the paint before it cures. And then what I end up doing is I end up putting 2 coats of this color. I mean, you can use any color base as long as it's pretty light. And the horses that I have picked out are like more of a creamy color in the background, so I wanted to stay in that family. And as long as you have a lighter background, those images will pop nicely. So we're gonna just continue and hopefully I'll figure it out soon. But I don't want to have to do this on every chair, even though there's only 4. It takes a lot of time, and that's why I only got 3 of these done. Plus, I haven't found another horse paper that I am in love with yet. I could do the Black Stallion that's on my fridge again, but I kind of want to do different ones so that they're all different but kind of look the same. So Whimsical only had 3 of these gorgeous white horses, and so I'm kind of on the hunt to find one more. I did buy one, but I'm not sure that I'm going to use it because it's not quite the same. It's got more of like a steampunk look to it a little bit, and I want it to kind of all flow. So here I figured it out. Let's take these off. So these screws are kind of interesting. They had holes in them to put the tabs in, which I've never seen before. So that was kind of interesting to me, but I love how intricate that floral pattern is on the front that they carved out. It's just so pretty. And I am not changing the wood at all. I love how old and vintagey it looks. I love the color of it. I think it's just perfect, especially with the table. I wish I could show you a picture of the table, but the table is really like got that old vintage look with the black scars on the top of the table from a cup being too warm or something sitting there. And I love it that way. I'm not going to redo it. I'm into antiques, and so that for me was just awesome. And so here I figured out, okay, let's take this off and get to painting. So I did let it soak in and dried with my heat gun. However, you don't have to. You can let it dry naturally. It just takes a little bit longer. And then once it was dry, I went in with I believe it was like a 220 sandpaper, and then just went over the top of the entire thing, both directions, just because it is pretty hard once the fusion dries. And so I want that fabric to be soft with that paper going over the top. So I did make sure to sand it down in between each coat. So here's where I'm going to go ahead and go in with that sandpaper and just lightly rub, make sure all of the really hard pieces on top come off. And I use my hand to just kind of guide where I need to redo certain patches and where it seems to be okay. So, and then I did make sure to also go around the edge because I am going to wrap that decoupage paper around the edge to the back. So once that feels good, then I will go ahead and go in with that second coat. And this one, of course, goes on a lot easier because I've already got that base down inside the fabric. So this is going to be more sitting on top, which ends up going a lot faster. Okay, so now we're on to the part where we're going to decoupage this gorgeous horse on. And this one is called Moonstone Beauty from Whimsical Designs. And so I just want to cut down just an area large enough to fit that padding in the back. So I have that whole bottom piece that I can save for, like, if I do like a mixed media piece, I can use those pieces for the background or something. So I always want to hang on to the extras. And so this I had to take my time with because I'm used to using rice decoupage paper, which is way more forgiving than like the 18-pound decoupage paper, tissue paper. So I didn't want to mess this up. So I just kind of took my time, and here I figured out, oh, I need to have it go in the right direction. Otherwise it's going to be upside down. Always want to check that first. And then once I get it cut down, I'm going to be using my Fusion's decoupage gel to put this on. And I also have my mister bottle to mist the paper, because that's going to make the fibers open up a little bit, make it a little bit more flexible, since we're working with kind of a rougher surface than say wood or something different. So we're going to just use the technique of the starter strip, and I'm going to go ahead and fold that back. Going to go get my decoupage transfer gel, and then I want to make sure I have enough. So typically you want just a nice, like, thin layer, but with it being so rough from the paint and the fabric, it's not a very flat fabric, let's say. So I want to make sure it gets down into the crevices, as well as a little bit of a coat on top. So it's got to kind of be a little bit thicker than normal. And then once I get a starter strip, I'm going to go ahead and mist the paper. Apparently I didn't mist it here. But typically I would mist it. Here we go. Okay, now I figured it out. And then I'm just going to pat it down, but I also get some saran wrap. It's nice to have saran wrap on hand. It's a little bit more gentle than pulling with your fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of saran wrap, and then we can kind of blot it and mold it a little bit better. So I want to just make sure it's going around the edges. Now, if you're having a hard time, if you have a curvy surface like this, you can cut the paper in little spots where it feels tight and it's not going to go around, which I didn't do here, but I did do on the others, and it made it a lot easier to mold that paper around to the back with there's so many curves being in there. So just a tip on that. And then it kind of does pull apart a little bit. You might have a little bit of an area where you can see underneath, and then just take some paint and kind of blend it in, and nobody will ever know. Or just another piece of decoupage paper from the extras that you have. So we're going to continue to work our way down, mist as we go, use the saran wrap. And then this is where I'm starting to cut because it was getting a little tight, these little pieces here. And then it helps to be able to get it around the back. So we're going to work all the way down to the bottom. And then once that's done, I am going to put a coat over the top like this right here to help seal it and keep it down. And that also helps to get the last of the air bubbles out. And I tell you what, the misting really does help get those air bubbles out as well. It just, for some reason, it seems to be able to flatten it out a lot easier. Before I used this misting technique, and I think Royce was the one that I learned it from. I had so many problems with wrinkles and bubbles and all kinds of stuff. So there's different ways. You can also use a little iron if you have some wrinkles and bubbles, and that helps to get it out. Or a lot of times I use my heat gun as well. So just some different tips and tricks there. And so I'm going to continue to just take my time, mold it around, and then once it's completely dry, I'm going to go ahead and just flip the back over, take off that excess paper with just some scissors. I don't use my little finger sander like I normally would, just because some of this side and top and bottom parts do show. So I want to make sure that it's completely covered. And if I were to use a finger sander, it would probably take it off. And then I waited for 24 hours, let it completely dry, and I ended up using my Fusion's Tough Coat Matte Sealer top coat. And I put 2 coats of that on just because people are going to be putting their backs against it, probably rubbing around. I want to make sure it's going to completely stay sealed and on there without any problems. And of course I'm going matte because that's what I like. Just look at how gorgeous this is. I am obsessed with these. I am so overjoyed that she gave these chairs to me, and we both, thought of this idea of how to put decoupage on there, and she's like, do the horses to match your fridge. So I think that was just a spectacular idea, and I am absolutely in love.
Headlights on the highway. If you only knew, being back here always makes me think of you.
This is one of those new decoupage papers called Haystack Hues from Redesign, and again, that is up on my website. But look at this barn. I just fell in love with this. This is like my dream home, to be on an old ranch with an old barn, just out in the country, living the good life. So I got this frame, this window. I think I thrifted it. No, I got it from my friend. So anyway, it's black on this other side, and so I thought that this would be perfect. And I'm just going to decoupage it onto the front side, which you might think is a little weird, but I'll tell you why. This is more like a fabric, and so it's really easy to work with and really doesn't have hardly any wrinkles. So I'm going to decoupage the front, and then I'm going to flip the window over, because typically with a decoupage you want a light background so that those colors in the paper pop out. So I'm going to flip the window over and then just paint the window panes white on the back side, and then that's going to give this image the pop that it needs. So I will just decoupage each pane and let that dry completely. And then this is where we're going to go into the back side now and then just paint those windows white. And I did 2 coats, but I also painted the actual, just the whole frame white. Just because it was pretty rough looking, and if I'm going to sell it, I might as well just paint it all white. So did 2 coats of the entire thing, let it dry, and then I flipped it back over and I used my X-Acto knife to remove the excess on the decoupage paper. Project, I did end up getting this little recipe holder from the Goodwill bins, and it was cute on its own. I loved the tone of the wood, so I am going to go ahead and tape off the bottom part, but I did want to do something fun for Christmas. You know, like the kids like to make gingerbread cookies, or they like to bake during that with the holidays and the grandparents. And so I thought it'd be fun to make like a Christmas one where they can put their recipes on and their books to hold their recipes, and while they bake with Grandma making memories. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint it 2 coats, and then I'm going to go back to my Holly Jolly decoupage paper, and there was a super cool Santa and so I wanted to be able to use him, so we are going to put him on there. Again, this is just a really easy way to upcycle something that really didn't deserve to be put into the bins in the landfill. I mean, it still is in great condition. It's got a lot of life left in it, and so we are going to give it that second chance, and hopefully it will have a good home. So the color that I used on this piece was called Cobblestone, and the reason I picked that was it has more of a cooler tone to it, more of like a grayish tone to it, and I just thought that would be better for the underlying part of the decoupage paper that I picked out. I didn't want a real warm color, so I don't know if that really makes sense to you guys, but it does to me. So this is that Santa. Look at how adorable he is. He's got his little sack of toys. He's got a sled. And then it has all the ephemera around it, like the old postcard writing and just the words and stuff. It just is a really cool vibe, vintage vibe to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the decoupage like normal. I'm going to go ahead and do my starter strip with my transfer gel and go on the bottom first and then over the top. And then when you have a piece that's really curvy like this, it is a little hard to remove the extra paper with your little finger sander. You can get most of it. So what I did was I used my heat dryer with this fabric type decoupage paper, and it actually kind of melts it so that it makes it a lot easier to remove. So that's just kind of a tip there. If you're afraid of fire or anything, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. But for the most part, because the decoupage is still really wet, it's not going to catch fire. So it's fairly safe. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just decoupage this on. And then once that's dried, I'm going to remove the excess paper, punch my little hole, and put my twine back in the top. And this piece is done. It literally didn't take me very long at all to do this. I mean, the longest I had to do was wait for my heat dryer to dry the paint. So, so that's definitely something I'm going to be doing a lot of for Christmas. I bought a bunch of raw wood boards, and I have such gorgeous decoupage papers. I'm just going to decoupage them on there and sell them as art, because people buy art all the time for different seasons, and they pay big money, which is crazy. So for me to be able to buy a board for like $3 and put a piece of decoupage paper on there and sell it for like 20, it just floors me, but I'm happy to do it. So
With the road, it's coming back
So I took the Rust-Oleum 2-time spray in gold, and I took some of the bottle brush trays that came with it. They were kind of a brown color anyway, and painted those. And then this little train station had a big chip where the top of the peak was. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my air dry clay and I'm just going to repair that and let it sit for a few hours before I paint it. And then there's another house that had a really big chip in it. And so I'm going to do the same thing. And they actually turned out really good. You can't even tell that they were repaired. So, and then after those dried, I did notice I let them dry actually overnight, I think. And the next day when I came in, I did notice the bigger chunk on this house here had cracked a little bit. Sometimes the air dry clay shrinks and cracks a little bit. So I did end up just filling that in again a little bit with the air dry clay. And it came out great. So, and I loved it because it looks like there's like bumps and things around the house anyway for snow effect. So this made it easy to repair. Just kind of blended in, took some water, molded it around, and yeah, it was an easy fix. So I'm going to take the White Swan from DIY and I am going to paint all of these white, everything. And it did take about 2.5 coats to completely cover all the different colors and things, but I think it was well worth it. And I chose the DIY paint because Fusion, even though it does have like a top coat in it, didn't have to be sealed. It's on certain textures, it grabs a little bit differently. And the DIY paint just automatically sticks right to it. It doesn't like move around on you. And it's really easy to dry and it dries really fast. So that's the reason I chose that paint. Love both paint lines. There's just different things that you want to use for different projects. So, yeah, it was fun, nice and relaxing, and I was able to just sit down, watch my show, get these painted, and it was just nice to have some me time. This is where I'm adding that extra clay the next day to just hide those cracks a little bit. And then I'm taking some of that white swan on my gold trees, and I'm just putting it on a paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint the tips of it to make it look like there's snow. And then I did this on all of the trees, and at the very end when I was done with the houses, I looked at the trees and I'm like, I just want a little bit more chunky snow on there. So I did end up going back with the mixture that I had previously for my white Christmas tree in the last video that I did. It was some of the white swan paint mixed in with some salt wash to give it texture. So I just put that on the paintbrush, and it gave a lot more texture to the white and looked more like there was some snow piles sitting on the branches there. And I think it made it look more effective. So this is an 18 karat gold leafing pen that I bought at Hobby Lobby, and it just really makes this step a lot easier. You can use a paintbrush and gold paint if you want, but I just find this that it just makes it go quicker, easier, and it looks really good. You do have to kind of keep pumping it to get the the metallic paint to come down in there, but that's okay. And I think the pen cost $5.99 plus tax, so definitely well worth the investment for the time that I'm saving to do all these little tiny details. So this is that mixture of the white paint and salt wash, and what I'm doing is I'm just taking it and I'm dabbing it onto all the snow parts of the roof, and I'm going in with some it's plain white glitter. There's no opalescence to it, so it just gives it that glistening effect of having actual snow sitting on the rooftop. And so I just put the paint on there, put some of the glitter on there, and then shake off the excess and then let it dry. And then I will go in with the Rust-Oleum clear matte spray and give it a couple of coats so that the glitter actually sticks really well. But I think this is just a beautiful touch, and it makes it, makes the magic come alive on these little houses, and I just love how they turned out. And I do want to thank all of you that have made purchases off my website. You've made me busy with that as well, so thank you so much for supporting my business. And some of the decoupage papers did sell out, but I have them in my hands to restock on my website, so I will get that done today. And I've also added a lot more decoupage papers, redesign has come out with a lot of really cool of the fiber decoupage papers. And so you'll want to go check those out because those are going to make extraordinary like big picture boards and stuff. So, and I'll do a video on that as well. But look at my little village. Isn't it so cute? I just love how these turned out. So elegant, gorgeous. And you can find these at any thrift store, basically. They have them everywhere for just super cheap. And then you can turn them into this beautiful high-end, luxury village. And I am going to put this on my tablescape for Christmas. I'm so excited.
Down empty streets, you were all I used to know.
I found this cute little wooden cubby at a thrift store for $6, and it was a brown color. So what I'm going to do is go in with Fusion's Midnight Blue, give it one coat. I wanted it to not be completely covered because I want it more rustic vibe to it. And I am going to distress the corners and stuff anyway. So just doing a really quick coat just to cover most of that brown. And once that's set, then we're going to do a little snowman scene on the front there. Now this one I think is super cute. And again, I am going to be using the joint compound instead of paint. And it gives it just a little more texture and makes it seem like it's a little bit more alive and fun. I love textures, if you haven't noticed. And I love doing these little totes, these little wooden crate tote things. They're so fun to do. Plus, they're functional. Like you can use them for holding art supplies or school supplies or napkins or just about anything, home decor. Just put some greenery in there, florals, and they're just so cool and functional. So what I'm doing is just kind of mapping out where I want my snowman to be. And I'm going to go in with my joint compound and just make a snowman. Simple as that. So I did not do the arms, but I did do the nose. And I'm just using a little, I got this at the dollar store. It's just a little palette knife. And it's got a really skinny top, so I figured be easier to get into that little nose area there. And I'm going to just it's maybe like a 1/4 of an inch thick all the way around, but I want it to be textured, and so I'm just kind of patting it up and down, smearing around, getting a nice texture on there. And then again, once it does dry, I'm going to just take a sandpaper real lightly and go over all the high spots and just rub those down. And we're going to paint him with the picket fence again. It's kind of all the same supplies. And then once he's done, I'm going to spackle some snow around him, and it's going to make it look like he's just having so much fun out in the snow and enjoying life. So with him, I did not use the glitter on there. I didn't want to have glitter falling off everywhere if it was going to be used as a functional piece. So I just left him white, and then I'm going to go in with my rose water again and give him some little rosy cheeks, and I'm going to use the cast iron to give him a smile. And I did start with the little dots for a smile, but I ended up turning it into like just a one line smile. I thought it looked a lot cuter than the dots on this one for some reason. And then what I'm going to do is once I get him all set up here, I guess it looks kind of cute too that way, but for some reason I was just like, no, I want it more predominant. And then I'm going to tape off my handles there. And then I am going to flick some of that white paint back onto it to make it look like it's snowing on him. And so when you do this, the paint can go everywhere. So you definitely want to make sure to tape off any areas that you don't want the paint to be on. And it goes pretty far. I usually get it all over myself, as well as my ring light. It just goes everywhere. But it's just too cute not to have. So you just put some paint on there. A lot of times people will water it down, but mine was pretty watery anyway. Picket fence is a lot less thick than most of the other fusion paints because it doesn't have a ton of pigments in it. So now I'm just taking my little finger sander and I'm going to just distress the edges a little bit. And because fusion has its own sealer, I don't have to seal this. I did seal the nose because that was DIY. I took a little bit of my decoupage transfer gel that I had sitting on the desk here and just dabbed it on the nose, and that way that was sealed and completely done.
Forever, forever ago, and you used to drive me home. Now I drive alone. You and I, forever, forever, forever ago.
Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a look back at those last few months from July to now, and those were a few of my favorite projects that I've done this year. And so let me know what your thoughts were, and I want to let you know that this is the last video for this year. I'm going to go ahead and take the next 2 weeks off to spend time with my kids and my family and enjoy the holidays together, and I hope you all do the same, that you're able to enjoy some time with friends and family. So I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year, and we'll see you in 2025. Take care. Bye.